Andy, I cannot deal with it. I mean, I sound like a broken record because it's been 2 weeks straight. I've talked about the fucking rain, and I wake up this morning and there's like it is rain nonstop here, and it's been gray skies. I saw the sun briefly for about 30 minutes. I had to get outside, but I mean, Andy, it has been it's awful. I feel terrible. Like if I wanted this, I'd live in Seattle, but man,
Yeah.
this is killing me.
Yeah. You weren't ready for Carolina monsoon season.
I didn't like the first 3 years we lived here. This wasn't a thing, and so everybody's always complaining about August heat here. Well, it's 80, which is great, but it's been gray and overcast and rainy
Yeah.
every day. It seems like
Yeah.
so.
It gets old fast. It wears on you. You know, you need that sun and spirit to come in. So yeah, I hate it. So hopefully it dissipates while I'm down in the in your neighboring state of Georgia.
It's been just so weird because it's little clusters. I mean, the weekend was rough because there was a big storm system that came through, and I think it's all from these tropical storms and so on. But or these disturbances or whatever. My concern is like I don't want to sound like a climate freak or anything like that, Andy, God forbid, but my concern is like the weather pattern in Charlotte is changing and because the Farmer's Almanac came out and it looks like we might get a little bit more wintry weather. We usually don't, it gets cold here, but it doesn't get snowy or even really icy much, but so we'll see.
Maybe you need to relook your last location and reconsider getting back down to beautiful sunny Florida, Dave, because it's always warm and the rain never lasts long when you're in Florida.
I don't think I could do that, Andy. I just don't. I don't think I could be practical for it. So.
All right, well,
Okay.
now you have a chance to be an old man yelling at the clouds, Dave. What are we
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
but that's exactly right. That's exactly so. All right, Andy, do we want to start with like a little MAGA civil war going on or like something like that? Do we think we want to go there? Or like are we fraying on the edges?
I
Um,
mean, we can, it's
okay,
rough to do
all
that
right.
early in the morning, but we can always start there.
It's Trump adjacent, I would say.
Yeah, yeah,
We've talked Laura Loomer in the past, and she's the old Veritas, I think, was like the journalist group that would try
yeah.
to catch politicians in lies and such, and then post it with like they pretend to be somebody, and then they post these scandalous videos and so on and so forth. Um, that's how she came into power. I think I said mentioned previously. I don't know how she got so prominent. I mean, I did know that, but anyways, but she's an ardent, like she's got the year of the president. She's got she believes in defending his vision for the future, whatever that vision is, which clearly is Trump profiting from the presidency, but that's the vision of the future. But so she famously got people out of the National Security Council. She changed some positions around, or it was convenient that she showed up and then the next day those things happen. Well, now she's taken on Marjorie Taylor Greene
Yeah.
and Medal of Honor winners, Andy. And so in the latest areas, we'll talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene later, but the Medal of Honor piece, um, she just started attacking this Medal of Honor winner as somebody who wasn't a Trump supporter, somebody who was and why did they parade this person other than to embarrass the president type of thing? This is unfucking believable, I think, Andy. So,
Is it? Is it?
well, I guess that's
I mean, again, it comes down to this idea that there's a MAGA ideological purity test, and if you haven't towed the line all the way through, then you're a traitor and dangerous to this regime. Like we were talking about, I think last week, we've seen people moved out of positions, whether they were staff or hired on for positions, and now this guy's obviously served and sacrificed, unlike big balls and he's getting a Medal of Honor, and we're going to crap all over him because he's seen as not a MAGA purist. It's a disgusting way to do things. We can't even honor fellow Americans because we have different political beliefs, whatever it might be. But again, it comes down to why is this person the MAGA purity test giver? Why do
yeah.
people care? But they do. But they do. Although this individual obviously still got his award despite his French birth. But
Yeah.
it's just amazing what we decide to throw stones at.
Well, it's a loyalty test I think we keep coming back to time and time again. And there's people who say, when it comes down to political decision making and whether Congress has the balls to vote against Trump or one of his agenda items or one of his proposed people, for example, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has to get voted on by Congress. And while people don't like this person Trump has nominated, nobody's going against them because they're towing the line, that loyalty test there. So that was Act One with Loomer earlier in this week, and then now she's taken on Marjorie Taylor Greene over more of these type of like incessant ramblings and calling people bitches and all this other stuff. I think some of it stems from how much money Marjorie Taylor Greene and other members of Congress have made in Congress and so on. I find it ironic because the president has profited, I think it reports now, billions of dollars off the presidency. The New York Times did a big piece on that. Other groups have done pieces on this, or I'm sorry, the New Yorker, not the New York Times. They've done big pieces on this, and now like we're arguing even um, within MAGA circles. So this kind of shit, just kind of this chaos, just continues to cloud this presidency. It's amazing, really.
It is, and you look at the nonsense between Loomer and Green, and it's like we said before, it's schoolyard nonsense, right? It's yelling and screaming on social media, blocking
Right.
and objecting and cursing. Once again, Margie Taylor Greene, who's full of garbage and wrong about so many things, and as corrupt as every other politician, has fair questions about why have you made so much money in the few years you've been in Congress? Like it doesn't seem honest and integrity, based, right? There's questions there, as there should be. But she did defend the Medal of Honor recipient, which set off the discussion with Laura Loomer, which is just it's just silly. It's just silly to see this kind of thing. What's more concerning is we have these nonsense arguments. Where are the serious characters in the Republican Party? Where is the serious voice in the GOP to stand up and say, hey, we're proud to stand by this Medal of Honor recipient who sacrificed and almost died 13 years ago, while serving in Afghanistan. Where is that voice? Where are they on any issue, right? As the president militarizes Washington, D.C., where are the liberty-minded Republicans to stand up and say, hey, this seems out of step with the American tradition and we're not going to agree and support this? They're silent, Dave. And so while we have very loud social media personalities and a few firebrand elected officials going at it, where are the responsible voices and the same voices?
Yeah, there are no responsible voices because those people who used to challenge those notions have all fallen in line. They've all come down together and pulled in this MAGA, God forbid I speak out against the president for fear of something that'll post on Truth Social. I mean, we've seen what happens to Tillis and other members who vote against some of his bills and you see where they're all coming down on this. But it just, I think Congress has lost any right to challenge, which is against the framework of the Constitution of checks and balances and having a legislative branch that doesn't just go along with what the president is saying. And this is the state of politics today.
Yeah, well, they haven't lost the right; they've just lost the balls,
Well, yeah,
right?
right.
Right, and that's the problem. I mean, I would, I've been frustrated the last couple of days, Dave. As we look at what the president is doing, I've got a lot of big concerns about where things are going to go here, and Congress, we're going to look back at this, and if the president further asserts authority, and if there is mischief in the results of the 2026 elections or beyond, we're going to look back, and it's Congress and the Republican leadership in Congress who have paved the way with palm branches and flowers for this president to assume authority and destroy the American political tradition. And it's been done with GOP acquiescence. They've approved it and blessed it and paved the way for him. And we could very likely be looking back at a situation here in just a year and a half or so and realize we lost we lost our elections, and there's a lot of concerns. I mean, I've really been like thinking about it a lot the last 2 days with what the president's been doing. It's concerning. I don't think we appreciate how concerning what we're seeing is.
Well, I mean, to your point, they have changed. Like SZA used to do a lot of election security, election monitoring. That has been largely relegated. That's been largely disbanded. And that effort is no longer like what we used to be accustomed again, to ensure the security, safety, and security of our elections from cyber threats and risks and all that other stuff. And to your point, adding in now, federalizing the National Guard to do certain things here from a law enforcement responsibility or to support law enforcement just gets people comfortable with them being present. And then it's easy now to be able to say, hey, look, to come up with a lie, which this administration is very adaptive doing, come up with a lie that there's election fraud and it is necessary to have these individuals who were mobilized for crime, right? Uh, Ironically, the president keeps saying how like amazing they've done on crime, and the FBI director said they've done amazing on crime, but yet they have to mobilize
Right,
here, right?
right.
So kind of ironic, but whatever. And so you have these things that again, it's small incremental things that are not so closely connected, but again, to get to that next step, we're right there. And who's going to stop them? Congress? No, we've already seen that Congress does not have any institutional backbone to do that. So,
Yeah, well, let me be let me be the one to paint the scary picture, you know, beyond that, right? And this is my worry. And I know it seems like, it's not meant to be fear mongering. It's just based on what we've seen, how likely it is, right? The president said before he was elected, I'm going to be dictator on day one. People laughed, ha ha. He's done nothing but assert his aggressive authority, largely unconstitutionally, since he's been elected, since for the last 200 plus days. He's going after that, right? So let's take a scenario where most likely, excessive gerrymandering aside, typically speaking, the opposing party wins midterm elections, generally speaking. Most likely, given Mr. Trump's unpopularity, Democrats would pick up a few seats. Democrats would probably win the House, maybe the Senate at the midterm elections. Maybe not, but most likely. That seems to be where things are going in a free and fair election. Let's just say it's a two-seat victory, and the president and the FBI declare those are legitimate elections. We're not going to accept those results. We're not going to seat those congressmen. With the National Guard deployed to cities around the country, with the National Guard deployed perhaps to the cities where those elections take place, and now with the Pentagon gearing up an internal rapid response force to respond to domestic protest and other concerns. And what if the president just refused to seat Congress, refused to accept their authority because they're illegitimate? And so the Democrats didn't really win the election and so refused to accept Congress as well. What if they go down that path? Like, who's going to object? That's a concern to me, Dave, because if we start to then protest as Americans, the White House is setting up the military to be able to squash protests around this country. Now, we have a conflict, we're going to have Americans potentially facing other Americans armed in the streets of America. It's a scary proposition, but that's where this administration is going, right? We're militarizing ICE. We're adding National Guard troops casually into the streets and cities of America. And I think all of it goes to, I'm not going to give up my authority. I'm not going to not be president. And I'm not going to have my majority in Congress in 2026. I hope I'm wrong, but that's the path I see us going down, Dave.
well, and to the point, I mean, it's as I've got my dog sitting here now. It to your point, it's not like these are small steps that are just priming. Like in if you don't connect them, then it's just individual actions, but they are all connected. They are all schemed together, and you have to look at them through that lens, and you have to be able to say this is very possible could happen. And so I think that's ultimately the concern. So yeah, I mean, and I do wonder, like the state of the military, is this what you signed up to do? Is this what you and I just don't know. Like, is ICE, even ICE, with all of these things that are going on, is this what you signed up to do? Now, I'm sure some people do want to do that, right? They do want to sign up for those actions, but I just feel like it's gonna have at some point it has got to stop, but I don't know who's gonna do it, Andy. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. And this is not the National Guard signed up for it. I don't think there's likely very many National Guard troops being mobilized in Washington, D.C. today. They'll want to police the streets of Washington, D.C. because that's not why you joined the army.
No. I agree. I don't think most people do that. There are, I mean, I can guarantee you there are some people sitting at home going, "Finally, we're going to get rid
Yeah,
of all this crime and we're going to get rid of all of these immigrants. Finally, I'm going to
yeah,
do it. I'm going to go join." There are a couple of those people out
yeah.
there, and we used to be able to vet those people out, right? We used to be able to,
That's right.
but you know, I don't know if that's necessarily the case anymore. So.
Yeah,
But again, recruitments are going through the roof, Andy. We got everybody, everything is great and wonderful in Trump's America, Andy.
right.
So
Thank God. Blessed be the president.
yeah, that's right. So all right, I'm done talking about this,
All right,
Andy.
take
Let's
it somewhere else.
let's go somewhere else. Let's wrap up, Andy. It's the last pod for you this week.
Yeah,
So let's wrap up for you with some football talk.
let's do it.
Um, all right, so we're week two. So again, we're going to see some more action going in this week. The Cowboys are touting like they're still like contenders here somewhere, and they still haven't signed Michael Parsons. So I don't have news to report on on that front there, but there are starting to be a lot of questions coming out of preseason. Like in the Indianapolis Colts, do they have the right quarterback? Is Anthony Richardson the guy, or they paid a lot of money to Daniel Jones? They both looked a little crazy this weekend.
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson keeps getting hurt, and so there are starting to get these questions that come out. Do you have any like big picture questions for the year that you're thinking about for the NFL season? Like, can the Niners come back? They had a down year last year, a lot of injuries, but can they come back this year? Does Pete Carroll still have it as a coach? Can the Raiders be a player here? What about the Chiefs? They got thoroughly embarrassed in the Super Bowl. Like, what's their mindset going into this year? Are they going to play like FU mode and just like try to squash everybody? They played a lot of close games last year, and now they're going to reassert their authority. What are some thoughts or themes you've got, Andy?
Well, I think, I mean, you touched on a lot of interesting ones, and I think, one, with preseason, 1 week of preseason football in the books, there is a lot of excitement, I think, that maybe is unwarranted at this point early in the season, right? I mean, we're looking at players that many of which won't be on rosters, come September playing football. People are freaking out, people are freaking out because the Lions had some holes, in their play. And it's like, well, yeah, they're preseason football players. Like that's
Right.
what you see. That's how you figure out who's who, and it's not your starters. So I think there's a lot of excitement coming out of week one, which partially is the NFL making noise too because they want it to be relevant, people to be excited about the season starting. So I think there's a lot going on right now that isn't really real season football. But I think there are a lot of questions about some of these teams that have been consistently good. Will they maintain that? That's always to me one of the most exciting storylines is who's going to fall unexpectedly, right? What if the Chiefs come out and just don't have it this season, right? I mean, they've just dominated the last 6, 7 years of football, won a few Super Bowls, been to the Super Bowls, almost every time. They've just dominated the AFC and done a great job in the NFL. What if they just don't have it? What if the leaner, happier Taylor Swift, loving Travis Kelce just doesn't have the magic this
Yeah.
season? Right? The Eagles are poised to be strong and dominant again. But what if they're not? Right? Someone is going to fall off. It could be my Lions, right? With changes in their defensive and offensive coordinator. I always love to see that team that just doesn't perform. I hope it's not my Lions, but there's going to be one or two teams, the Bills, right, that have been consistently good that just maybe don't quite get there. And then who's going to surprise us this year, right? Do the Falcons come out? Is Michael Penix a surprise success, this year and he just do really well? Do the Dolphins figure out how to win a football game when it's not 80 degrees and sunny and actually make a run in the playoffs? Those are some of the storylines I love to see, and you kind of start to see that happening in those first 4 to 5 weeks. You talked about on Wednesday that that we can't take those games as preseason games. And so when we get the football season started and we start to see some of these early matchups and some of these teams underwhelm and some of these teams surge, I always love that storyline. And then there are the real holes and questions like no, Danny Dimes isn't the solution for the Indianapolis Colts. What are you going to do? That team's going through a little bit of a spiral, the death of their owner. They have no quarterback. They really haven't in a few years. Will Anthony Richardson step up and be that guy? I don't know, but it's exciting to watch. And as you mentioned, there's still some free agents out there. Carson Wentz maybe most notably, that might end up making a difference for a team.
Yeah, who's going to pull the panic move and go in and say bring back Carson Wentz and we'll bring him in. But it is like we're going to start seeing this is what do we make out of these players? And for some players, it's like make or break for them. I mean, I think we've heard a lot about Tua. Are they prepared to continue? Like, where are the Dolphins going? Are they going to be there at the end of the year to even make a playoff run, or do they have to think about change that out of quarterback? Same thing with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. You know, this is I think year five or year 4 or 5,
Yeah.
very consistent. He had one pretty good season, and then sandwiched around two not so good seasons. And so, where are we at with Trevor Lawrence? Are the Jags ready to make a move and transition there? They've got a new coach, a lot of offensive weapons, and so on. So, what happens there? This is the type of stuff I'm really excited about for the NFL season because those storyline you mentioned like who's the team that's going to come out of nowhere that we don't expect and they're going to make a run. This is what is so great about the NFL. They have that parity level that allows you to like every team is in it until, maybe about mid-year when it's pretty clear who the make or breaks are. But even after then, a lot of teams can make a run still. And I think that's what just is great about NFL football, Andy. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I think two of those teams I'm really going to be curious to see how they perform this year. Our two teams are definitely in transition, but brought in some veteran talent to try and get a spark going, right? So will the Pittsburgh Steelers, perennial 10 and 8, 10 and 7, or sorry, 10 and 7 team, will they make the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers at the helm? Like, can he surprise and do well? Can he be liked by America again, right? Will Russell Wilson, journeyman now that he is going from team to team every year, it seems like, bring something to the New York Giants, right? Some people saw potential in the Giants towards the end of last year. Can Russell Wilson come in and provide some maturity and leadership on that team and do something there? Those will be fun early storylines to see. Because if those guys come out hot, it'll be fun. And if they come out, failing, there's going to be, clamoring for bring us another quarterback. It's going to be fun to watch. And, maybe something we'll look at here, Dave, these coming weeks is maybe some predictions on who wins some of these divisions because there are some teams, that have been there the Niners, right, who are trying to make a push, but then you've got the Rams who are sort of asserting themselves as a dominant power in the NFC West. Some of these teams that have been winning, but now are on that bubble. Can somebody come in and snatch the title? The Lions have done well in the NFC North the last few years. First time in a long time, the Lions have done well in the NFC North for more than 1 year in a row. Will they be able to do that again, or will somebody come in and take that title away from them this season? It's going to be really fun to watch. The exciting thing is a couple more weeks of preseason football, more playing time for the active roster, the starting players. We're going to start to see these teams shape up. In a few weeks, Dave, we're going to be cheering on week 1 football.
So I think the Russell Wilson story is going to be fascinating because has anything changed more about like a person's like path than Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl against the Patriots, that interception at the goal line when they clearly should have run the ball with Marshawn Lynch? I mean, and ever since that time that was like the breaking the valve off the fire the fire hydrant or whatever. The everything changed for them. Now then you started hearing about how Russell Wilson, because he up to that point he was like the golden boy. He was like couldn't do anything wrong. He had a strong religious background and faith that he shared, and the coach, he had a great relationship with the coach, and it seemed like he was the right type of quarterback for what they need. They won the Super Bowl. They dominated the Super Bowl. Then they play the hated Patriots, and they're ready to. It was a great game, that
Yeah,
back and forth,
great game.
the interception at the end, and then all of a sudden you started hearing the stories about Russell Wilson this, Russell Wilson that, and has his own lockers like section. He's got his own parking
Yeah.
like spaces around, like all this story. And you're like, well, that can't all be true. That's just bitterness or something. But yet here we are now moving around from team to team, Denver, and well, and now he's on the Giants, and like what is really happening here? it's very unusual. I thought this guy was a surefire Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Now he's just one of those guys.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's tricky when you get into that, when you get that role as an older quarterback and you're not on a team that really just gelled with you, and you're seen as that reliable guy that can come in and guide a team along for a year. So he goes into Denver, he goes into Pittsburgh, now he goes into New York because he can provide some stability as they try and figure out who's our future quarterback. And he can come in and get along with the team and he can perform at a good level, right? But you're not really putting him in a position to be great. Like he's not going to teams that have a strong offense and stability. And in most cases, the Giants might be different. An experienced coaching team, while the Steelers of Mike Tomlin, there were other changes on that team. So has he had the chance to like settle in and feel like I'm going to be here leading this team for a few years? He really hasn't. And that happens to some players. And then you see some of those guys go on these journeyman careers and just add something really fun to the NFL over time. Like guys like Fitzmagic, right, who was a wild journeyman who became really loved towards the end of his career because he would go into these teams, just play wild football, play really well, and people loved it. Russell Wilson, if he does something in New York, which isn't as bad a team as maybe they played the last couple of years, if they do pretty well, people might get really excited about it because he's still young enough to play for
yeah.
a minute. And I think he's still talented enough, but he did have a lot of sort of quirky baggage along the way. He's going to have to overcome that in a tough media market because New York is a little bit more aggressive on their quarterback than Pittsburgh is. So he's going to have to perform well early, and he's going to have to sort of control the extra peripheral noise that sometimes comes along with the Russell Wilson experience.
Well, Andy, I much prefer talking about this than the other topics we go through from time to time. So all fun. But all right, Andy, we'll wrap up for this today. I'll be back on Friday. You will not be because you'll be attending your son's commissioning. So congratulations to the Jabor family again. Exciting times. Has he gotten his duty assignment yet, or is it
Oh, still waiting, still waiting.
okay? Should be fun to see. But will he follow Daddy to Fort Sill in the middle of Oklahoma? He's definitely going there for training, but then he from there on after. So. Okay, Andy, with that, good luck to you, our best to your family, and I will catch up with you. I will catch up with our listeners on Friday, but I'll catch up with you on Monday, Andy.